Hi, this is Harry Wagner from Harry's Situations, and I'm here with ARB's Tacoma outfitted with their new Old Man Emu MT-64 shocks, putting it through its paces. We're here at Mount Patterson. We're going to drive up to 11,000 feet in varied terrain that's the perfect test for any shock absorber. And looking around, it's hard to tell that it's August because it's so green after the record winter we had in Lake Tahoe, but we've seen tons of wildflowers. There's old historical mining towns here. It's got just about everything you're looking for on an expedition. Our mission here today is to put Old Man Emu's new MT-64 shocks to the test. These roads are washed out and rutted. We've got a variety of conditions that would be a challenge for any shock absorber. So I'm really curious to see how they stack up. We loaded up ARB's 2022 Toyota Tacoma, outfitted not only with the new MT-64 shock absorbers, but loads of other ARB products, including their bumpers, air locker, air compressor, drawers. Well, you get the idea. This Tacoma has it all. We were curious to learn how Old Man Emu's new MT-64 shock absorbers stack up against their BP-51 shocks. To that end, our camera truck is equipped with BP-51s on all four corners, along with Old Man Emu coil springs and leaf springs in the rear. There are a lot of shock options out there on the market for Toyotas. So what sets apart ARB's new MT-64? Well, before we get into that, let's talk about what MT-64 even stands for. MT stands for monotube, so these use an internal floating piston, and then 64 is the piston diameter in millimeters. That works out to about 2.5 inches. Big diameter, lots of fluid volume, which is great. Now contrast that with the BP-51, that's a bypass shock with a 51 millimeter piston. Bypass means that it's position sensitive in addition to being velocity sensitive. Now, there's other things out there on the market that have similar features, but what set these apart is that they've got rubber bushings instead of spherical bearings, really good seals that ARB uses in these, and they're gonna last a lot longer than a race application that you're putting into use on your daily driver or overland vehicle. You can run these MT-64 shocks all over the place for years without ever having to touch them. And like every Old Man Emu shock, the MT-64 is factory tuned for your specific vehicle and designed to work in conjunction with Old Man Emu coils, leaf springs, and control arms. Once leaving pavement, we started to climb steadily past Bircham Creek and Lobdel Lake. During our visit, the lake was fuller than we can ever recall seeing it. We also encountered dozens of wildflowers, including lupin, phlox, paintbrush, columbine, and penstemons, to name a few. As we passed Lobdel Lake, aspens gave way to juniper, and then juniper gave way to low ground cover as the road continued to climb. The Sweetwater Mountains largely consist of a geologic pluton surrounded by volcanic flow from the Little Walker caldera. Above the timberline, the Sweetwater Range provides habitat for many rare plants in the rhyolitic soil. Referred to as Mars with flowers, this area is unlike any place we've ever visited. The runoff made the road more challenging than usual, but the ARB Tacoma handled it without issue. Whether slow speed crawling or carrying momentum over loose terrain, the MT-64 shock absorbers offered a smooth ride thanks in part to their internal hydraulic top-out control. There are plenty of options on the market for large diameter internal floating piston shock absorbers for Toyotas, but most of these were developed for racing applications and have features like spherical bearings in the shock eyes, exposed shock shafts, and seals that need to be replaced on a regular basis. Now, if you're a desert racer, these are a normal, expected part of race prep. But if you use your vehicle for overlanding or daily driving and weekend exploring, the MT-64 is a much better option with their double-bonded natural rubber bushings, multi-lip redundant sealing pack system, and rear shaft guards. The front MT-64 coilover shock body also has multiple snap ring grooves that provide anywhere from 0 to 3 inches of lift. No need to swap coils or worry if your vehicle will sit level after you make future modifications. You can depend on Old Man Emu's MT-64 shock absorbers to be trouble-free for years of exploring. We're up here on Mount Patterson, and even though it's the middle of August, you can see there's phlox all over the ground, there's other wildflowers blooming, lupin and paintbrush. It's pretty great. But all that water has really washed out the road and made it way more technical than usual. These MT-64 shocks from Old Man Emu are handling everything with aplomb. Now, I'm not gonna say that the MT-64 shock from Old Man Emu is the only shock that can handle this sort of terrain, but it just might be the only one that can do it day in and day out with minimal maintenance. Besides Mount Patterson, other peaks in the Sweetwater Range include Wheeler Peak, Middle Sister, and East Sister, all over 10,000 feet in elevation. The Sweetwaters aren't visited nearly as much as, say, Yosemite, but that's exactly what drew us to this area when we are looking for locations to test the new MT-64 shock absorbers. You don't need a heavily modified vehicle to explore this area, but a supple suspension and the ability to air the tires down and back up when you come back to the pavement is highly recommended. ARB's Tacoma, outfitted with their twin air compressor and MT-64 shock absorbers, fits the bill on all accounts. One of the things that differentiates Old Man Emu from the competition is they don't just make shock absorbers, they make leaf springs, coil springs, bushings, control arms, and it all comes together to work as a package. The end result with these MT-64 shocks? Perfection. By the end of the trip, we had witnessed breathtaking views, camped out under the Perseid meteor shower, and racked up hundreds of miles on the new suspension. After putting ARB's Tacoma through its paces, both on the road and on the trail, I'm really impressed with this Old Man Emu suspension. The new MT-64 shocks work wonderfully. They have a lot of rebound damping and control, a firm ride without being harsh. If you're looking for a high-end monotube shock for your next build, be it an overlander or a daily driver, you definitely don't want to sleep on the MT-64.